They said Lake Wraith was closed after the fire, but the thing about Americans is, when you tell them not to go somewhere, they always do. The danger, the mystery, the forbidden, those are the things that call them in like moths to a flame. And that's exactly what pulled Ethan, Mara, Caleb, and Jess off the main road that night. The sign was half rotted, its paint long peeled away by rain and time. Only a few words were still visible under the rusted nails. Do not stay after dusk. The Wraith wakes when the mist touches the water. They laughed, of course. Jess filmed the sign with her phone, zooming in as she whispered dramatically, "The Wraith wakes." Ooh, spooky. Ethan smirked, shaking his head. Yeah, sure. Probably some old ghost story to keep kids out. Caleb grinned and said, "Well, mission failed, because here we are." By late afternoon, they reached the lake. The place was hauntingly beautiful. Towering pine trees curved overhead like the ribs of some long-dead beast, and the lake itself was still, dark, and mirror-like. It reflected the overcast sky so perfectly, it almost didn't look real. Even the air seemed heavier there, charged with something they couldn't name. Mara set up her camera tripod near the shore. Okay guys, this is perfect. Urban Legends, Lake Wraith Edition. She gave the lens a teasing smile. 4 campers, 1 creepy lake. What could go wrong? They all laughed, but their voices seemed smaller here, swallowed by the forest before they could echo. Ethan started the fire, snapping dry branches in half. Caleb unpacked the cooler, tossing beer cans onto the blanket. The smell of smoke and pine mingled in the damp air. The sunlight was already fading faster than it should have. Hey, check this out, Caleb called. He was pointing at a small object hanging from a nearby tree branch. It looked handmade. Twisted reeds tied into a rough circle, with a slit cut through the center, almost like an eye. What is that? Jess asked. Probably some local craft, Caleb said, shrugging. Or a scarecrow charm or something. Mara walked over, lifting her camera for a close-up. It's kind of creepy, she said, zooming in on the slit. It's like it's watching us. Then let's stop it from watching, Caleb said, yanking it down and tossing it straight into the fire. The flames hissed sharply, turning a strange green for just a second, before settling back into orange. The smell that came from it wasn't wood. It was something sour and metallic. Everyone coughed. Dude, what the hell? Ethan snapped. You trying to poison us? Caleb grinned sheepishly. Relax, it's just old grass. But the lake rippled. It was subtle, like a soft breath across the surface. Though no wind was blowing, Mara turned her camera toward it. But when she zoomed in, it was calm again. So still. It reflected the trees upside down. The sky dimmed, faster now. Dusk melted into night like ink spreading in water. As the temperature dropped, a thin mist began to form along the shoreline. At first, they thought it was pretty, ethereal even, but it didn't stop at the water. It crept onto the land, slowly, deliberately, curling between their tents and rising around their legs. Jess rubbed her arms. Is it me, or did it just get colder? Ethan looked around. Yeah, weird. Maybe the lake's releasing heat or something. But Mara noticed something else. The forest had gone quiet, completely. The crickets, the rustling branches, everything had stopped. Even the fire seemed to burn without sound, like they were trapped inside a muted world. Guys, she said quietly, do you hear that? Hear what? Caleb asked. Exactly. Jess gave a nervous laugh. Okay, creepy. Let's just turn on some music or something. But when she opened her phone, there was no signal. None of them had any. Ethan frowned and walked toward the edge of the camp, holding his phone up for a bar. That's when he saw it. Across the lake, through the mist, something standing on the far bank. He froze. It looked like a person at first glance, tall and still, just barely visible through the fog. But there was something wrong about the way it stood. The angle of its head tilted just slightly too far. "Mara," he whispered. "Point your camera over there." She turned, zooming in through the viewfinder. For a second, she caught it. A shadow, humanoid, unmoving. Then the camera flickered, static cutting through the feed. When the image cleared, the figure was gone. Caleb tried to lighten the mood. Probably a hiker, or some ranger playing a prank. No one laughed this time. Ethan came back to the fire. The mist was thicker now, curling around their ankles like cold smoke. The trees looked farther away than before, like the forest was pulling back from them. "Maybe we should leave," Jess said softly. "Now?" Caleb scoffed. "It's already dark. The trail's narrow. We'll break an ankle. Then at least let's stay inside the tent," Mara said. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "Lock ourselves in until morning," they agreed, but none of them could sleep. Sometime after midnight, Ethan heard something. A faint dripping sound, slow, steady, like water falling from a height. He unzipped the tent just enough to peek out. Nothing. The lake was still, the mist dense. But that dripping sound continued, close now, just beyond the firelight. He stepped out, holding the flashlight. The beam cut through the fog, illuminating only the nearest tree trunks. "Hello," he called. No answer, just that sound. Drip, drip, drip. He turned toward the fire pit, and his heart stopped. Hanging above the extinguished flames was another reed symbol, the same as before, freshly made, droplets of water sliding down its surface. Ethan stumbled back, tripping over a log. Behind him, Mara unzipped the tent. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Before he could answer, something moved in the mist. Fast, low to the ground, circling the camp like an animal. Jess screamed. The sound came from the darkness. Ethan and Mara spun around, but she was gone. Her flashlight lay in the dirt, its beam pointing toward the lake. They ran after it. Through the fog, they could barely see her outline. Jess, on her stomach, clawing at the mud as if something invisible was dragging her backward. Her nails scraped deep grooves in the ground. "Grab her!" Ethan shouted. Mara reached out, but when her fingers touched Jess's arm, it was ice cold. A second later, Jess vanished beneath the mist. Her body yanked into the black water with a splash that echoed across the silent lake. The ripples spread out and faded. The lake went still again. Ethan fell to his knees. No. Caleb stared at the water, his face pale. "She took her," he whispered. "Who?" Mara demanded. He turned, his eyes wide, almost glazed. "The Wraith. We burned her mark. She's free." "What the hell are you talking about?" He lifted his hand. The same symbol from the fire was now carved into his palm, fresh and bleeding. The edges of the wound glowed faintly in the dark. Mara's breath hitched. "Caleb, what did you do?" "I think," he said, his voice shaking. "I think it was protecting us. The symbol. And now it's gone." The fire sputtered again, flashing blue, and in that flicker, they saw it, standing right at the water's edge. A figure made of mist and water, its face a hollow void, its mouth wide open in a silent scream. It didn't walk, it floated, each step rippling the ground beneath it like liquid glass. The air dropped 10 degrees. The fire collapsed into ash. The Wraith was coming closer, and somewhere behind them, deep in the woods, another voice began to whisper. Ethan's own voice, repeating words he hadn't said aloud. "You shouldn't have burned the mark." The mist swallowed the camp whole, and in the dark, something moved again. Jess's voice returned, but it wasn't human anymore. Years ago, before the lake had a name, before there was even a map to show it existed, the settlers built their cabins along its edge. They said the water was black even then, too black, too still. The older folk whispered that it was bottomless, that it connected to something older, something that breathed beneath. They called it the Wraith's Vein. When the fires came one summer, everything burned except the lake. They found the bodies afterward, faces bloated, mouths full of water. Though no one could explain how they drowned so far from shore. The survivors left, but before they did, they performed a ritual, a sealing. They tied the wraith beneath the water with a symbol woven from the reeds that grew only along the lake's edge. Every 50 years, they said, it would demand a life. In exchange, the town would remain untouched. That was the deal. The balance. Until 4 strangers broke it. The night Jess vanished, the camp became a nightmare. The mist had a weight now, a pulse. Every breath burned with the smell of rotting leaves and iron. The lake no longer reflected the trees. It moved like something alive, restless, waiting. Caleb sat near the fire pit, his hands trembling. The carved wound in his palm still glowed faintly, each pulse matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. He kept muttering, not in English, but in some harsh, guttural sound that didn't belong to him. Mara crouched beside him, shaking his shoulder. "Caleb, snap out of it." He turned to her slowly, and the look in his eyes made her recoil. They were black, not just dark, but empty, like the pupils had swallowed the light. His lips moved, and a voice that wasn't his crawled out. She was bound in silence. You broke the silence. Ethan grabbed Mara's arm and pulled her back. "We're leaving. Now." They stumbled toward the tree line, flashlights barely cutting through the mist. But the trail that should have led them to the road was gone. The forest had changed. Every direction led back to the same place. The lake, glimmering faintly through the fog, like a single blind eye watching them. The whispering began again. At first it was soft, far away, then closer, then right beside them. Voices layered over voices. Men, women, children, all murmuring the same thing in unison. "Stay, stay," Mara screamed into the darkness. "What do you want?" The answer came from the water. It wasn't a voice, but a sound. A gurgling, wet, human noise that rose from the surface like a sigh. Ethan turned, and there, standing knee-deep in the lake, was Jess. Her eyes were open, but they were wrong. Her skin was grey, her hair clung to her face like seaweed. She lifted her arm and pointed toward them. Her mouth opened wider than it should have, and a sound came out. Long, piercing, more animal than human. Mara fell back, clutching her ears. Ethan stepped forward, tears streaking his face. "Jess, no, please come back." But Jess wasn't there anymore. The thing wearing her face was something else. When it moved, the water didn't ripple. It glided forward, its body half dissolving into the mist. Caleb's voice rose behind them. "She wants blood for silence. The lake remembers." Ethan turned toward him. "Shut up, you're not helping." But Caleb was already changing, his body shaking violently as black veins crawled up his arms and neck. His mouth opened, and water poured out, flooding the ground at his feet. He dropped to his knees, gasping, choking on something invisible. Mara dragged Ethan back. "He's gone, Ethan! He's gone." The air thickened. The mist folded in around them, closing like a fist. And then, from within that choking white fog, came a single figure. The Wraith. Its form was shifting, flickering between a woman in a soaked burial gown and a creature made entirely of smoke and water. Its face was both there and not, features blurred, lips trembling as if whispering prayers from a forgotten tongue. Every step it took warped the air. Ethan aimed his flashlight at it, but the beam fractured, bending away as if light refused to touch it. Mara stumbled backward, dragging him with her. "Run!" They sprinted toward the tree line, but every tree looked the same. The forest was endless, looping. The air grew colder with every breath, the mist slicing their throats like glass. Then Ethan stopped, pulling Mara behind a fallen log. "We can't keep running. It'll find us anyway." Mara's hands shook. "What do we do?" Ethan swallowed hard. Maybe if we give it what it wants. Her eyes widened. What are you saying? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the lake, where Caleb now stood, motionless, head tilted back, mouth still pouring out water that didn't stop. It pooled around his feet, dark and slick, snaking toward the Wraith. The ground shuddered. The trees groaned. The lake seemed to inhale. Then the Wraith reached Caleb. It placed a hand on his head. His body convulsed once, then collapsed into nothing but mist. Mara screamed. Ethan grabbed her arm. Go now. They ran again, but the forest was dissolving around them, melting into endless grey. Mara's lungs burned. Her legs ached. And then she realized Ethan wasn't beside her anymore. She turned and saw him standing near the lake, staring into it. His face was calm, too calm. The reflection on the water wasn't his, it was hers. Her reflection blinked, even though she wasn't blinking. Then it smiled. Ethan, she cried. Don't! He took one step forward, then another, walking straight into the lake. The water climbed up his legs, his waist, his chest. His reflection reached for him, touching his face. And for one brief, impossible second, the water seemed to embrace him. Then he began to dissolve. Skin peeled away like wet paper. His screams didn't echo. They were swallowed, muffled under the surface. Bubbles rose and burst with soft pops, and then he was gone. Mara dropped to her knees. Her voice broke. Please, let me go. The mist swirled around her, and from within it, she heard her own voice whisper back. You broke the silence. She ran, blindly, desperately, through trees that weren't trees anymore, through fog that smelled like the dead. She tripped and fell, her hands sinking into cold mud. Her fingers brushed against something metallic. Her camera. It turned on by itself. The red light blinked. The screen flickered, showing her own terrified face, smeared with dirt and tears. Behind her, the mist thickened, rising like a wave. She turned slowly, and there it was again. The Wraith, towering above her, its face inches from hers. For a heartbeat, it looked almost human. A woman's face, pale, drowned, eyes filled with something like sorrow. Then it opened its mouth, and darkness poured out. The camera fell. The last thing it recorded was Mara's hand being pulled backward into the fog. The sound cut out, leaving only static and the faint whisper of dripping water. Days later, a park ranger found the camera half buried in mud near the lake's edge. He watched the footage once. Only once. Then he quit his job and left town without telling anyone why. The video ends with a single frame. The lake still and empty, mist rolling across its surface. For a brief second, if you look closely enough, you can see 4 figures standing in the fog, facing the camera. Locals say the mist never leaves Lake Wraith now. Even on sunny days, it lingers low across the water like a bruise that won't fade. Campers who ignore the warnings claim to hear voices calling their names at night, and when they look toward the lake, they see themselves standing on the opposite shore, smiling. No one stays after dusk, not anymore. But every year, when the season changes and the fog grows thick again, a new reed symbol appears hanging from the trees, freshly woven, dripping wet, swaying gently in the cold morning air. Some say it's the Wraith, marking her next offering. Others say it's the lost souls of those who broke the silence, bound forever to guard her restless sleep. But if you ever find yourself near Lake Wraith, and you see the mist start to rise, don't look into the water, don't listen when it calls your name, and whatever you do, don't stay after dusk.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.